Okay, welcome everybody. What's up? Hope you are well. Hope you're well. All right, let's just dive right into it. So, when it comes to marketing on social media, which is obviously the number one avenue with which we have to expose people to what it is that we have to offer, right, in the world today, especially with how countries, especially in Europe, of course, have gotten rolled back into lockdowns and things like that. It really, has become a remarkably saturated place, right? Meaning it's very, very full. A lot of people are posting about a lot of different things. A lot of people are posting about whether it be about politics or the economy, or they're marketing their own businesses or services or whatever it is. Drop a one in the chat box if you would agree that social media feels more crowded than it's ever been. It just feels very, very crowded, right? Social media feels very crowded, so noisy, right? There's just so much going on. And so, what you're faced with, believe it or not, is the same challenge that all business owners have always been faced with through the history of time. And that is, how do I stand out in a very, very, that's right, Michelle, how do I stand out in a very, very, very crowded world? How do I stand out in a crowded world? How do I create an environment where people pay attention to my messaging, my content in a way that helps them to recognize that I'm not just doing what everybody else is doing? So, we have a couple of things that we're going to talk about here right now that I can help you hopefully with in terms of how to create content and copy that really converts people and really catches people's attention and really helps to do the number one thing that you're always looking to do as a business owner, and that is, how do I differentiate myself, right? So that is the biggest question that you've always got to ask yourself as a business owner. And some of you that are currently running other businesses, maybe you're a personal trainer, whatever it may be, like, this is a question you also want to answer for yourself in any business, right? Is how do I differentiate myself? Well, there are a couple of ways not to differentiate yourself, right? So one of the ways to not differentiate yourself is like what Emma talked about, and that's being a copycat, right? And seeing somebody post something and then posting the exact same thing. So that's a really good way to not differentiate ourselves, okay? But we do it, and we do it because we're brand new. We don't necessarily know how to create our own content, and that's okay. That's what we're here for. That's what the training is for, right? So you can learn how to develop those skills. So I'm going to give you a couple of basics when it comes to content development that'll just help you with creating more, again, diversity and differentiation in your community and your marketplace. Because here's the reality: a lot of people are going to sing the same song. And eventually, when you sing the same song, the listener drowns it out, right? The listener drowns out the song. That's why so many types of advertising have become largely ineffective, because consumers have learned how to get just processed through it. So, for example, drop a 2 in the chat box if you don't like watching commercials on television. Drop a 2 on the chat box if you don't like watching commercials on television, right? Okay, now watch this. Drop a 3 in the chat box if you can still remember certain songs and jingles from commercials in your childhood. Drop a 3 in the chat box if you can remember certain commercials from your childhood. Okay. How is that possible? Why is it that today you hate watching commercials, but there was a time that you liked watching commercials? Because there was a time where commercials created what's called a pattern interrupt in your mind. And so you didn't experience the commercial as an annoyance. You experienced the commercial as a new distraction to keep you engaged between the show that you're watching and it coming back on television. So you were willing to sit and watch commercials and absorb them. But eventually, what happened with that type of advertising, of course, there are still commercials for sure, right? And it's expanded into Facebook advertisement. It's called interruption marketing, right? Is eventually the mind just tunes it out. And if you show up on social media the same way that everybody is showing up on social media, well, guess what's going to happen? Your audience is going to tune you out. But what's even more challenging about social media is you have no idea if they physically have tuned you out, meaning you have no idea if they go, oh God, I'm so tired of seeing the same types of posts from this person over and over and over again, right? So unfollow, unfriend, right? Things like that, okay? And this is great from Robin. This is great from Robin, okay? So that's what we really are up against. That's what we're really up against. So I'm gonna use some of Robin's notes here because that's really, really helpful. That's great. That was the first thing I was going to talk about is, can you learn how to create empathy and write your content from a place of understanding and compassion? Meaning, it's one thing to say, hey, we're doing a 30-day challenge. I've got, some spaces left. You should join this. It's another thing to say, I remember a time when I felt blank. It's another thing to say, have you ever had a moment in your life where you were experiencing blank? It's another thing to say, I can vividly remember how it felt when I XYZ. The reality of the situation, believe it or not, 8 out of 10 people are only going to read the first sentence of your post. 80% of the people that scroll are only going to read the first post. So that means you have a half a second to use language that's going to catch their attention and get them to want to read more. Drop a 4 in the chat box if you're already recognizing that you have room for improvement when it comes to the skill development of content creation, okay? Okay, so that's a big part of it, right? The ability to communicate from a place of empathy, the ability to communicate from a place of, I know how it feels to be where you are, the ability to communicate from a place of, wow, God, Penny really, is she in my brain? Is she in my brain? Is Andy in my head? How did he know? How many of you ever seen people write things? Some of you have written this on my post. How many of you have seen somebody post something and then what do they comment? Well, I really needed that. Drop a 5 in the chat box if you've seen that, right? Or you've come, I needed that today. I needed that. How did they know? How did they know? I didn't know that you needed to hear that message when I wrote that message. What I knew was that I was willing in that moment. I was willing in that moment to open up a part of who I am and what I've experienced in my life. And I allowed you into that space. And when you came into that space, what you saw was a mirror. You saw a reflection. You saw yourself within my story. You see yourself within the story of other people. Why do you think it is you'll see a film, you go to the cinema? How many, just drop a 6 in the chat box here in a moment. How many of you have gone to the films, right? You go to the films, you're there, you watch, and then all of a sudden the lights come on, you go outside and you're like, oh, right, it's the daytime right now. Like, where did that come from? Because you drop a 6 in the chat box if you know what happens, what's happening. What's happening is you're surrendering your unconscious mind and you're allowing yourself to get lost in the story of the characters. You're allowing to experience yourself being one of the characters. It's the same thing when we watch a sporting event, when we go watch a football match, or if we go watch, or if we watch boxing or anything along those lines. As human beings, we have the ability to shut off our conscious thinking brains and drop into our imaginations and follow what's called a story arc. And we start to see ourselves in a story arc. And depending on if we like the character or we don't like the character, we either see ourselves as what's called the protagonist in the story, or the hero in the story, or the antagonist in the story, which would be the villain in the story. And so I want you to start thinking about your content creation from this perspective of what's been my story, what's the journey that I'm taking people along. Now, it doesn't mean in every single post that it has to be like this, but when you go to really want to draw people in, I want you to hear this term loud and clear. It's something that we used to teach a long time ago. It's called my story marketing. Imagine that your social media is a magazine, and it's someone's opportunity to read through the magazine, and the magazine is telling a current event of stories happening in your life, right? So the first couple of chapters might be like how you grew up, some of the things you overcame in your life, and oh my God, you got introduced to this company. Where were you at in your life when you met this company? What have you? Oh my God, look at the results that they've experienced. Look at how many people they're helping. Okay, here's a new challenge that they're experiencing. So my story marketing, right, is the constancy of inviting people into our world, opening up ourselves. They see a mirror inside of us, and when they see that reflection of themselves, they think to themselves, wow, she's just like me. I can really relate to him. And what do you think gets cultivated when someone can see themselves through the eyes of our story? What do you think gets cultivated? It starts with a T. It's the most important thing in a relationship. Exactly, Donna. It cultivates trust. It creates a feeling of familiarity. It creates a feeling of, I can trust moving forward with this person in some capacity in my life because they inherently, intuitively, somehow, some way understand who I am. They see me. But if all we do is post before and afters, if all we do is try and sell people on 11-day detoxes or 30-day challenges or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with those things, but how you do it and how you communicate and the language that you use, the pain points that you are willing to address in your own life and as a byproduct in their life, the more likely it is that you will then bring them in to want to continue with you. Because drop a 7 in the chat box for those of you that are run 11-day challenges. You bring in a bunch of people, but where'd they go? Drop a 7. You're wondering how they had a great result. They loved it. But where are they? Where'd they go? Even 30-day challenges, where are they? There are all these people that were so excited. They got great results. Where'd they go? You know where they went? They went on to the next thing. They went on to buy a product from somebody else. And why? Because you didn't fuse a relationship. You just sold a product. And the way we build community is through content. And the way we build depth inside of our organizations, any kind of business that you're ever in, is by, as a business owner, helping your customers, helping your team members to understand that you fundamentally recognize and appreciate the journey that they've been on in their own lives. And the only way to do that in a real way, in an authentic way, is by inviting people into your own journey. You know, a lot of people have asked me in the past, they've seen me on stage. Some of you have seen me on stage. Drop an 8 if you've seen what I'm about to share. Drop an 8 if you've seen me on stage, small room, big room, crying, losing my crap, right? The emotion, the shaking, the quivering. And a lot of people go, how did you, it's so courageous to do that, blah, 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 blah. But for me, it's not, it's second nature. But do you want to know where I learned how to start so I could do it live and in person? I did it through writing. I did it through commentary, through my social media posting, through my willingness just to put myself out there a little bit at a time so that people could start to look at it and go, yeah, he's not just selling a product. He's inviting me in to be a part of a journey. And he's showing me that I can be the hero in my own story because he's gone before me. But if all we do is sell products and sell challenges, if that's all we do, I promise you, it's going to be a long, painful, frustrating build in this industry because you're constantly going to be having to resell and resell and resell and resell. Now, that doesn't mean that creating content is going to, help everyone to stay, but is it going to increase your retention significantly when you have people that believe in you because you see them in ways in which no one has ever seen them before? You tell me. You tell me. What keeps people inside of a community, what keeps people inside of moving forward in their lives is the belief that they are surrounded by other people who acknowledge them, who see them, who recognize them, and who put a value on their future and who they can potentially become. And that starts, the beginning of that starts not when you enroll them, but it's when you're communicating to them. It's when you're sharing your content. Okay, so that's a big part of it. Now, the other big part of writing compelling content is, what problem are you solving for people? What's the problem that you're solving for people? And if you're always just constantly if you're always constantly, solving the same problem, guess what happens? They start to tune you out. So how can you pay attention to what's going on in world events while being compliant and still solve a problem? So for example, pivot on purpose. One of the big problems I'm talking about as a business owner that we have the ability to solve is nobody wants to go to grocery stores. Some people can't go to grocery stores, but they still want functional food. So how are they going to order their food? Online. Where's it going to get delivered to? On their doorstep. Drop a 9 in the chat box if you recognize that it's time for you to also start to create some more relevant copy, some more relevant content. You got to speak to the demands of the consumer. People are looking to have their problems solved by people like you. But if you're not communicating in a way that isn't cookie cutter, and I mean this, if you're just posting the same stuff that everyone's posting, or someone tells you to post something, stop, take a step back, evaluate it. Is this message true for me? Does this really align with my brand? Do I really believe in what, in the copy and paste of this? Maybe you see a great post that someone's encouraged you to do. Like, look, I'm just going to call it out. I have no problem with it, right? There's some great material that's coming out of the recent online virtual events. But even me, if I say to you, hey, everyone, here's a great post, don't all post it at the same time. Why? Why not? Why don't? Because then you're not differentiating yourself. Then you're not standing out. Because remember how the algorithm works. Your network bleeds into Penny's network, bleeds into Sharon's network, bleeds into Adele's network, right? It goes on and on and on. And then what happens, they look at it and they go, okay, so they just don't care who comes in. They're all saying the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean don't take what you're learning and use it, but how do I use it? What do I do? Here's what I wait. I know a certain percentage of people are all going to post the same thing. So what do? I put it in my pocket. Great post. Cool. I put it in my pocket. And then what do? A month, 2 months later, then I post it. Okay. So again, when it comes to creating content, these are some of the subtle ways in which you can start to differentiate yourself in an environment that is wildly overpopulated, that's wildly oversaturated, right? That's wildly inundated with the same stuff over and over and over again in all industries. Make no mistake, that's the thing. It's not just us. Okay, it's not just us. I could do this training for real estate agents. I could do it for insurance brokers. I could do it for franchise owners. I could do it for anything. The training is going to be the same thing, no matter what. These are the ways in which you can start to differentiate yourself. So before you go to post, and this doesn't mean to get paralyzed, it doesn't mean overthink it, but before you go to post, just stop and ask yourself the question, okay? What am I really communicating here? What problem am I solving here? Am I really allowing them into a part of my world and what I've experienced, right? These are some of the things that you really want to take into consideration when it comes to creating content. That is how you separate yourself. That's how you differentiate yourself. Is this helpful? Drop an H in the chat box if this is helpful so far. Okay, cool. So H works. We can do 8. That's fine. Whatever works for you. H, like, yeah, there you go. H for helpful. Okay. So again, these are just a couple of the ways in which you can differentiate yourself. And then here's what's going to happen from an attraction marketing perspective. Here's something I guarantee you will start to happen if you're consistent in being creative in your content. What will happen is people will come to you and say, hey, I've been approached by a bunch of other people from your company or from other companies like this, blah, 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 blah. And I never wanted to do it. But there's something about the way you do it. In fact, I didn't even realize it was one of those things. Because you're so authentic and you're so vulnerable and you're so willing to communicate the realities of the experience. We don't need to fluff it up. We know that our products are great. Doesn't matter if you're in the beginning of your build and you're not making any money right now. It's okay to share that you're still at the grassroots, that you're still building, that you're still learning. It's okay to do that. The truth is always good enough. We don't need hype. We don't need smoke and mirrors. Because here's the other big reality about being in Europe with this company in the UK. We're brand stinking new. 3 years as the oldest market in the European, well, we'll still call it the EU, okay? So far, right? We're not quite official yet. So we're still gonna include the UK. 3 years, right? Roughly 3 years. Brand new. Brand new. So how you choose to brand yourself right now is massive for the future of the countries in Europe as we grow and differentiate ourselves. The last thing you want to do is be a spammy pammy. The last thing you want to do is copy everything that you see everybody doing. It's the last thing you want to do, I promise you. I promise you. What will separate you in this industry, especially right now, especially as you guys are getting rolled back into deeper restrictions, what will separate you more than anything is a feeling of professionalism, a feeling of, oh, they're standing on their own 2 feet, a feeling of, you know what, they know who they are and they're communicating from that place. And guess what I just said? That right there, what I just said is the shortcut. It's the secret. Learn to communicate from a place of your real identity. Learn to come from a place of really being in touch and in tune with what your values are, what matters to you, regardless of what you see other people doing, and be consistent in that behavioral pattern. And I assure you, people will look at you and go, he knows who he is. She knows who she is. They never waver. They never veer. Consistent over time. I can count on them. I can trust them. I want to be in business with them. I want to be friends with them. I want to be around them. Because guess what? People don't buy how much money you've made. People don't buy the products that you're selling. People don't buy 11-day detoxes, 30-day challenges. People don't buy the comp plan. They don't buy any of that. People buy one thing and they buy one thing only. And that's you. That's right. They buy your essence. They buy who you are. They buy your posture. They buy your certainty. They buy your willingness to say, here's where I'm at. Here's where I am. Here's where I've been. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm going. They buy your desire to want to truly know who they are. That's how you differentiate yourself in a very, very crowded, loud, hysterical market and time in the world. And there are a lot of people in your network, especially right now, who are looking at network marketing opportunities. They're looking at ways to work from home. It's real. No matter what your political beliefs are, it doesn't matter. The reality is we're back in our homes. People are looking for solutions. They're looking for someone to partner with. And they're going to partner with the people that communicate and resonate in essence and an energy that says, I can stand in certainty and say that I can be here for you because I know where you are today. I've been there. In some ways, I'm still there. But here's who I'm working with. Here's who my partners are. Here's what I'm learning. Here's where I'm growing. And they're going to say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. And when you bring people in that way, that's when they stay. That's when they stay. And they really start to grow. And they really start to put in the time. And they really get on the calls. And they really build the skills. Because what they recognize inherently is that you are willing to open up your world and see them. I'm going to post in both groups, what did you learn? I hope you guys took value from this call this evening. Have a great, great evening. Sleep well, be safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a great evening. Ciao.